Good morning. Hello, everybody. We are back. It's Dr. Petteruti here along with Shannon after our 2-week hiatus. We took a couple of weekends off. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being so kind to Dr. Michael Souza. And our thanks to Dr. Souza for doing a great job while we were out of town. But we are back. We are back picking up our ongoing narrative. We're today focusing on the elements that go into that 120-year lifestyle that we like to advocate for. You know, think about it. The possibility of living to be 120 is alluring only if you feel great. Now, we've had people come to us and say, well, 120 is cool, doc, but what I really want is vitality. And I guess that's kind of a theme. Today we'll be talking about that. There's information regarding diet and longevity, a new study, Shannon, looking at high-carb, low-carb diets and longevity. We're going to talk about a carcinogen in your Cheerios, if possible. Does anybody really eat Cheerios anymore for breakfast? Has that ever been a good idea?
I gotta tell you, I actually hear clients talk about it a lot.
Cheerios?
Yes.
How did Cheerios get a reputation for being food?
Because they did a lot of marketing.
It's like dessert for breakfast.
But isn't it the heart healthy?
Heart
right?
healthy.
Isn't that right? There's
so
a huge heart on the.
That's why we're on the air. We are here to try to correct all of this misinformation. Diabetes drug that can cause increased risk of amputation. Thank you very little for this new drug brought to market. Some of you may be on. We'll update you on that. Sad updates on the drug overdose and what to do about it. Information from New England Journal. And the new blood pressure cutoff. Really? You went to see your doctor, your blood pressure is 132/82, wants to put you on drugs. Is this a good thing? A review of multivitamins. Are they worth taking? Should you be on them? So we're going to touch on that. And also new recommendations that people be screened. Now, whenever a medical authority advocates screening, a warning sign should go up in your brain. Beware, beware. Oftentimes, screening is used as a vehicle to pull people in for expensive investigational studies that the doctors and hospitals get paid for. I can give you an example, Shan. We're going to do prostate cancer screening, and it'll be free to the public. Really? Why? So you can get people all nerved up, so you can look for stuff that is irrelevant, but nevertheless generates biopsies, imaging, cha-ching. For what? Well, there's other information on lung cancer screening, and we're going to highlight, folks, the difference between a study and real life. And I think this screening is relevant to that. And another one about screening for urine leakage. Right? Now,
That's the best.
It's just a terrible thing. Well, so they talk about urinary leakage, and they say, well, if this is a concern for your patient, right. If I'm leaking urine, I don't want to know how much is the threshold. The fact that it's coming out when it shouldn't be is enough to know. So it's a serious issue, though, right?
It is. That affects your quality of life. So
yeah.
If you have someone saying, hey, we can help you.
Right.
Sign me up, right? You don't know
right.
anything
So
better.
we're gonna talk about that and the intellectual medicine approach to that. But first, Ty, we gotta cue up the song. I'm so heartbroken, right? Yeah. Remember this one?
No.
Okay, try to think what political event this connects to. Can I sing?
No,
I can't?
no.
She won't let me sing, Tyler. All right, well, what we're talking about, of course, is bid farewell to your paw socks after 50 years. Not only does it rip away an entertainment venue for the common man, the average Joe, the average Jolene, who could go buy a ticket and enjoy a day at the ballpark. No more, folks, no more. Paw socks are gone. And why, after 50 years, did they leave us? For Worcester? That beacon of allure, that metropolis that everybody is dying to get to? Worcester? We lost to Worcester? Are you kidding me? How do you fumble this ball on the 1 yard line? I'll tell you how. When you don't have your eye on the ball, when you're out courting companies all over the nation, touting achievement because we brought a new company to Rhode Island. It has 30 jobs. Meanwhile, the company that's been there all along, the Pawsox, are gone. Larry Lucchino, a brilliant developer of ballparks, a credible success, gone. You know, every time you drive by Pawtucket and you look at the Apex building, think about what's not there. I am tired of Rhode Island being declared a success story when we're mired in stagnation. And whose fault is it ultimately? It's ours. We voted these people in. We're the ones that are satisfied with mediocrity. We're the ones that are happy with a bloated budget, with a infinitesimally anemic recovery. The crumbs fall off the table from Boston, and we declare it a banquet. This is Rhode Island. We need to expect more. The Pawsox are gone. The Superman building is empty. Well, here's one good thing about the Pawsox being gone, Shannon. All those folks that no longer can buy tickets to the Pawsox, they have more money to pay for parking meters and speeding tickets in Providence.
That's right. All those new speed cameras going in.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. $450 million wasted on UHIP. $450 million. The Pawsox are gone. Anybody out there, any of our listeners can update us? We've been gone for a couple of weekends. About the Thane building in Providence. Is that dead or alive? I'd like to know. So if you can call Tyler and he'll relay that, we'll find out. Or they could do it on Facebook too, right? Because we're on Facebook, aren't we, Shan?
We are.
So people can actually see us.
They can see you.
We got to turn that camera around. That ain't
They
right.
see you.
Well, hey, we had a great time, folks. We were up in Mount Adams doing some hiking. I hiked for 12 hours with a 50-pound backpack through the White Mountains. 12 hours. Let me tell you this. I do not recommend that. It was the Baton Death March of hiking. Okay, we got a little bit lost, me and Ethan, you know, but we survived a little bit, you know. I can't make that kid's backpack heavy enough, right? He's bouncing through there like kangaroo. But hey, the story is that as I approach my 60th year on the planet, I can still do that sort of thing. This intellectual medicine, anti-aging lifestyle is awesome. I had the juice to do that 2 nights in the woods, 50-pound backpack, despite my bone-on-bone arthritic knee with 12 knee operations, still hobbling along. It was fun. And that's what I want for all of my listeners. I want the vitality of life. I want you to target the 120-year lifespan. Dr. Souza and I and Shannon, you know, we live for this. This is what we believe can be achieved. And we're going to be talking about some of the core elements to that. You know, when we come back, we're closing in on a little break here, aren't we, Tyler? Yes, indeed. And then we spent, time in Bermuda. Absolutely. If you've never been there, if you ever get a chance, the entire country, Tyler, I'm driving around with a little scooter, you know, 22 miles an hour is a speed limit for the entire nation. And I'm driving my scooter, and you know what did not happen? Nobody flipped me the bird. I mean, I was putzing along, a line of cars behind me, and nobody swore at me.
No, they didn't care.
They didn't care.
They were just driving.
Tooling along. Beautiful little country. Anyhow, we will be back after the break. Stay with us. We're going to tell you about the carcinogen in your Cheerios and about how not to screen for lung cancer. I'm Dr. Petteruti. This is Intellectual Medicine. We'll be right back. Hey, Tyler, what you got?
So, Pat Ford, the chairman of Rhode Island's Libertarian Party, wanted to talk to you about Pawsox stuff. Do you want me to tell him to call back another time when it's a news show? Locally and get the local flip.
Pat wants to talk about Pawsox stuff. Let me give it a thought for a moment. What do you think?
He's the chair of the Libertarian Party, so he's a very big, like, no government at all type of show.
You know what? I think if we give him just a minute. Yeah, let's bring him on air. We'll give him a minute.
Sounds good. Last name is Ford. I'll type that.
Pat Ford. Okay. Maybe we'll have him call back at the end.
Yeah.
Like in the last. Hey, Tyler, let's do this. Let's have him connect in the last segment of the show because I have some medical things I need to get to, and let him know that we're going to have him on at that time. Hey, everybody. So, sorry for that little political rant. Actually, I'm not sorry for it. I think it's all relevant. Economic prosperity correlates with medical health. And to the extent that you suppress one, you suppress the other. Anytime there is a pursuit for equality, so we've heard a lot about economic inequality. Economic inequality is good. It means people have the freedom to pursue different lifestyles. You want economic income equality, you're against disparity. Well, that's called, social. They have that in Cuba. Everybody's about the same. Everybody's miserable together. I like that there are people that are fabulously wealthy that are doing crazy great things. Those are locomotive people. They're pulling the train, right? And a lot of us, we're boxcars. And the better that locomotive performs, the better we perform. On some level, all economic prosperity is trickle down. I know that's not a popular theme, but somebody's creating a business, somebody's creating a job, somebody's creating manufacturing, somebody is building, and somebody is hiring people. The person who builds is here, the people he hires are here regarding income. That's a form of trickle down. I know it's not a popular concept, but it's the essence of capitalism. And capitalism has freedom, which means the freedom to do nothing. You have the freedom to smoke weed and play hacky sack and sit in a corner and do nothing. And not that smoking weed is a correlate to failure, but
No.
I think it does how to put it, it demotivates people. Demotivates people. So I remember my son, he was working for a construction company, and at lunchtime, this is back when he was in high school, the crew would go back by the dumpster and smoke a little weed at lunchtime. And he came home one day and, he didn't partake of that recreational activity. And he said, now I know two things, why all the houses are crooked. And I know that if this is my competition in life, I'm going to do okay. So there's a connection. So that's why we talk about economic issues, because they trickle down to our health. In order to have good health, you must have the resources to have good food, the resources to acquire the knowledge needed to pursue good health.
That's the Russ coming up 10 seconds from Michael being in the studio the past few weeks. I forgot to give you the one.
Oh, okay.
Rust is off. We're good to go from here.
All right, brother.
Still have workable weather. Call 1-800-PAINT.
Because you're back in the saddle.
That's it. That's it.
Intellectual medicine.
How about that timing?
Call in now at 438 WPRO or 1-800-321-WPRO.
Yes, we're back in the saddle, and we're riding hard today, thanks to Tyler and Shannon and the crew. And we do have a special call-in guest. It'll be at the end of the show. We're going to amplify the paw socks issue. Now, we need to get to these medical issues first, so I do thank Pat Ford for waiting and coming back at the end of the show. However, people will say, well, what's the connection here? Well, there's a connection between education, income, wealth, and longevity. Simply put, well-educated people of reasonable financial means live better and live longer. That's it. And we want everybody to have a chance to get on that up escalator. And the only way to do it is with an approach that enhances global wealth. And the approach, folks, is not crony capitalism where we dole out money to select companies. That's not the approach. When they take my money and your money and anoint a corporation by transferring that wealth to the company, that is crony capitalism. It is a government trying to pick winners. I got to get off this topic. It's killing
Yeah,
me.
I know.
Let's talk about
Okay.
Cheerios.
Okay.
Are we going to
Love
get sued by
Cheerios.
Quaker Oats?
No, we're just reporting.
Does Quaker Oats
you know?
even make Cheerios? No, it's got a Kellogg. Anyhow, here's the problem, people. Here's the problem. We've been talking about this, and it deserves to be reiterated. Roundup is a probable, I'm going to quote this from the World Health Organization, carcinogen. It is a probable carcinogen. Now, they're picking their words very carefully. Why? Because a company that makes Roundup is enormously wealthy and powerful, right? They have billions of dollars at their disposal. What's our legal defense fund stand at right now, Shannon?
Oh, I think like $2.
All right, so I better shut up. So they have billions and billions. Your Cheerios, your oatmeal. I didn't know this until we did the research. Glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup, is a probable carcinogen. If you have Roundup in your house, I ask you, why? Why? What did a dandelion ever do to you to make it worthy of being gassed with a carcinogen so that your lawn looks pretty? And you'll wonder why Rhode Island is one of the leading cancer states in the nation. But you know, when you consume it unknowingly, this is a problem. And it gets consumed unknowingly because you have enormous amounts of it in Cheerios, in oatmeal, and oat products. And here's what happens. They spray the oats with Roundup as it gets close to harvest, so they can kill the plant and dry it out more quickly. It makes it easier to harvest. That's awful. My advice to you, right, Shan?
Right. I'm just thinking, how many children? That's like one of the first finger foods. Easy
Yeah.
to pick up. You've all these kids. Right?
Yeah, it's a great point. And certainly lifetime exposure begets greater risk. So our advice is to what? Pitch the Cheerios? It's like,
It's just hard. And then you think, well, what do I eat?
do they make a
Organic.
organic
They do.
Cheerio?
Mhm.
Do they?
Mhm.
It's out there, right?
It is.
It's a little more
I think
expensive,
Target
right?
even like has their own brand.
So
Yeah, it's out there.
get your kid the organic Cheerios. Part of our motto here is spend more, eat less, right? Buy high quality food, eat less of it. There was a study that's been out correlating the high carb, low fat diet with what's called U-shaped curve, meaning that very low carb had a higher mortality rate and very high carb had a higher mortality rate. The study is flawed. They didn't look at obesity. They just looked at the amount of carbs eaten. So when you hear these type of studies, don't panic, folks. Just talk to us. We'll help you. The bottom line with all nutritional pursuit is that obesity kills, and that which helps diminish obesity helps extend lifespan. Now, how about that diabetic drug? Well, we know diabetics are at increased risk of heart attack, stroke, peripheral vascular disease when the blood flow doesn't go very well to the end of the body. Think feet and legs. All of us below the knee have a decrease in the vigor of the blood flow. Diabetics especially. Sadly, even if the blood sugar is controlled perfectly, it does not seem to have much of an impact on the heart attack, stroke, and what we call macrovascular change. That's the big artery change. It does seem to correlate with an improvement in retinal health and in diabetic blindness. So there's a problem out there. There's a missing piece. There was a study done called the Trial to Assess Chelation Therapy. We talk about it often because it's vitally important, and we're one of the only people talking about it. This was a study looking at intravenous chelation, the type that is delivered at Intellectual Medicine in East Providence and Warwick. This IV therapy, when delivered to diabetics, profoundly decreased their risk of heart attack and stroke. It's one of the only interventions that have been shown to have that degree of impact. And the reason you've never heard of it is because it's not a drug. It's a mixture of vitamins and a mixture of supplements, along with calcium EDTA or disodium EDTA, that is not commonly available. They can't write a script for it. There's no drug company making $1 billion from it. So it languishes. It languishes underutilized. So now we go to the Invokana. Invokana is a trade name of a drug that is used to lower blood sugar, and they found in studies double the risk of amputation for people who are on it versus other drugs. Double the risk. So this gets us to the risk-benefit analysis of anything you do with your doctor. This is a problem. It's a problem. How do you know if you're getting quality reflection before a drug is prescribed or before an intervention is recommended? It has to do with time, people, quality conversation with your doc. Now, I have great empathy for my colleagues. They are being crushed by bureaucracy. They are being crushed by external mandates, vertical integration, right? The doctor is working for the man. I remember when doctors were independent advocates of patients' health. Now, the majority of them have become employees, taking a check from the hospital, from the greater organization. And they are monitoring the doctor's behavior through computerized sources where they can look at their rate of executing certain behaviors. That means a doctor often has more focus on the computer than on you. So here's an example. Screening. There's a screen test out there for lung cancer. And this is a fable, a microcosm of how Orthodox medicine tends to work. It's not an evil cabal. It is a self-interested entity that pursues financial and clinical pursuits that reinforce their benefit. So let me explain. Lung cancer screening with something called low-dose CAT scan, meaning a rapid CAT scan with relatively low doses of radiation, has been recommended for smokers. What is it, Chen? 20-pack years?
Oh, yeah, something. There's a whole calculator.
There's a
Something
threshold.
Calculator, yeah.
So they did a study to determine, would this be helpful? And the study found that it would be helpful in identifying early cancers in a certain cohort of the population. And when properly administered, properly interpreted, they could reduce the rate of death from lung cancer, which is still one of the leading causes of cancer death. Problem. There's a downside to this. False positives, that is, shadows in the lungs that induce unnecessary surgery and biopsies. In the study, 19% false positive rate, 19% overdiagnosis rate. However, after they started to put this in the community at large, the overdiagnosis rate jumps to 67%. Why? Well, in a study, everything's controlled, it's closely monitored. In the community, your poor doctor is getting bombarded with a million things. They did an observational study, and they wanted to know, how often does a doctor discuss the negative risk of getting a screening done? The rate of that conversation taking place, 0%. It didn't happen. They didn't talk to the patients about the hazard of getting this CAT scan. Now, we can extend this dynamic to other screening tests. Mammograms. There's a huge downside to mammograms, a colossal risk of overdiagnosis, unnecessary anxiety, uncertain benefit regarding longevity. There's a large cohort of evidence, of big studies done, that showed no distinct benefit when it came to doing mammograms versus not doing them. Now, I know this is sacrilege to speak of, and I'm not advising you to abandon your mammograms, but rather to think about them. And this comes to the heart of intellectual medicine, which is freedom of choice. If you have no choices, people, you have no freedom. And if there's only one delivery system for healthcare, let's call that Orthodox Medicine Incorporated, and if they control all thought, and they control all ideas, and they limit what can be said, and they restrict physician conversations, and they encroach on the essence of intellectual medicine, then you, my fair listener, have been deprived of your freedom. If you have one choice, really, you have no freedom. We'll pick up on this theme because it goes right to the heart of too big to fail and of the monopolistic nature of medicine, the way it's currently evolving. We're pawns in a game. Anyhow, those are things to be wary of. When we come back, we're going to talk about leaking urine. And we're at the end of the show, we got to circle back to the paw socks and the horrible fumbling that took place. But we need to take a break. Up next, from the Revolution Soft Wash News Center is Doug Lizette with today's headlines. Morning, Doug.
Oh, another.
About that, I've got so many mouses here. I accidentally hit the wrong one. The call I pulled is somebody from corporate calling for another show because they've got something to take care of.
Okay.
Calling for what?
From corporate, it's not for you.
So don't worry about the call right now.
All right, Tyler, thanks.
Another thing with
Yeah.
all the screening, you got to click those boxes, and if you're not at a certain percentage, right, meaningful use,
That's right.
you actually lose money.
Right.
So
That's
are you
right.
going to sit there and talk to them about all the negative? That could take 15 minutes to talk to someone about mammograms.
You can spend the entire appointment discussing the
one-
risk-benefit of mammogram before
Do you do anything else?
before you write their 8 prescriptions
Right.
that need refilled
Right, you don't have time.
because people are on too damn many drugs.
Right.
It's terrible. So that's it. Stop eating Cheerios and oatmeal. Do not take Invokana. And if you're on it, talk Talk to your doctor about, I hate that drug.
I know. I remember when it came out. You were like,
I never liked it.
Nope.
I never liked it. Is it? I saw problems with it out of the gate. I didn't like its mechanism of action. It seemed superfluous, unnecessary, redundant. You know, the real story about diabetes, it's an environmental disease in the vast majority of individuals. Now, there are some type 1 diabetics who have a genetic autoimmune failure of the pancreas. That's a different disease altogether. When we talk about diabetes, we're primarily talking about type 2. This is an environmental disorder. It is a consequence of toxic nutritional patterns combined with, in many cases, things like chronic heavy metal exposure. We believe that when you treat the root cause of type 2 diabetes, it goes away in the majority of folk, or at least all the symptoms and manifestations. How many times have I taken people off of their diabetic drugs when we treat the obesity that's causing the problem? You can't treat diabetes not adequately, ideally, without addressing obesity. And orthodox medicine ignores obesity, ignores it. They give drugs that make people fat, that make diabetics get more sick. One condition, we should talk about that diabetic neuropathy case.
oh my gosh.
It's diabetic neuropathy.
Right. And he said, never did they tell me about weight gain, not once.
No, because they don't know about it. Well, I'm going to hold this story for when we get back on air because it's very telling about how orthodox medicine operates. Hopefully we'll get to the drug overdose issue as well. Multivitamins. We should probably talk about multivitamins when we come back.
It's a big, and it's where you get them from too. It's huge.
Quality, and it's also the dosing.
Dosing, right. What's in it?
What's in it? So you take one vitamin, it's got 82 things in it. It's a trickle of what you need. And it gives vitamins and supplements kind of a bad name in some cases because the studies are bad. They're doing bad studies on bad supplements and they're getting no outcome. Okay? That's about it. You do a quality study with a focused intervention with selective supplements at proper dosing. And proper dosing for therapeutic purposes means super high dosing that you really ought not to introduce without a doc who knows what they're talking about, or a naturopath. Naturopaths are good for vitamin analysis. Many chiropractors have this knowledge. So the knowledge is not the exclusive domain of medicine. In fact, medicine is relatively ignorant about it. It's a problem, right? There's this binary approach to medicine. There's drugs, and then there's everything else. And doctors know about drugs. So we'll talk about that. Exercise and dosing of exercise. We got to talk about leaking urine too, because we've been saying we'd talk about it. So we'll talk about leaking urine.
Did we talk about it?
We mentioned it, but we haven't drawn the sort of conclusion. So I'll bring that to a quick denouement. So we haven't heard yet about the Fane building, have we?
No.
Yeah. Nobody knows. They probably don't know what the hell the Fane building is. That tower in Providence.
The pretty new modern one that scares people. Right?
It's got a radical design.
Too modern for us.
And you got the people like the elitist up on the east side that don't like the idea of a shadow being cast on their favorite coffee bar.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Right?
You ever wonder how much exercise is too much for you? There is such a thing. Now listen, if you love exercise and you're having fun and you're happy, then whatever I say about dosing and duration does not apply to you. If you're like me, however,
So, I would say last time you were pretty satisfied with the back in the saddle joke, right?
yes.
You would say you're satisfied, right? You couldn't get no like him. I try sometimes. He just ignores it.
Or 1-800.
Nah, let's have fun with it. That's right, people. We can't get no satisfaction from orthodox medicine some of the time. Look, I love my colleagues. They're good-hearted people, and your doctor cares about you deeply. but they don't know what they don't know. And if here's one of the signs, here's a sign that you need intellectual medicine, okay? Here's one of the signs. Your doctor spends more time staring at the computer than at you. Here's another sign you need intellectual medicine. Your doctor ascribes how you're feeling to your age. Well, you know, Dr. Petteruti, you are approaching 60. The hell's that mean? It means I'm hopeless? No. Here's another sign you need intellectual medicine. This is a trick. This is a trick one, Shan. Your doctor tells you you're healthy. Well, you're in good health. Healthy? The hell's that mean? What do you mean I'm healthy?
Because your lipids are within normal range.
I know I'm healthy, but I know I'm not going to stay that way. People are dying out there, doctor. Don't you understand? Heart disease, cancer. What can I do to prevent that from happening? Well, we know that heavy metals are toxic, that you're full of cadmium and lead, right? If your doctor has no notion about lead or cadmium, that doesn't mean they're a bad doctor. It just means that they haven't studied the field that is part of intellectual medicine, like Dr. Souza and I make it our business to integrate. And speaking thereof, be wary of the screen. So here it is. We talked about urine leakage. Now here's the bottom line, folks. The bladder and your urinary system is supported by a muscle that's like a hammock at the base of your pelvis. You ever notice that? Like you're sitting, right now we're sitting on these two little bones, and between those bones is this hammock that holds everything in. Muscles need hormones to stay strong. And as you age and the hormones diminish, especially testosterone, the muscles weaken. And urinary leakage starts, especially for women. The urethral muscle that holds the urine in women is particularly anatomically weaker than in men. So they have a bigger issue here. And giving birth tends to stretch things out. So the remedy, the orthodox medicine remedy is what? Surgery? They put those meshes in people? Awful, awful, awful idea. Well, let me qualify that. It should never be your first step in the process, right? Almost to a person, when I see a woman struggling with urinary control, they would benefit from testosterone therapy properly administered. That's right, ladies. The big T is for you because it restores muscle, brain energy, vitality, preserves bone mass, preserves muscle, can reverse urinary leakage, and we've seen that on many occasions, have we not, Shannon?
We have.
In our clinical experience, we have seen it reverse that urinary leakage. Now, you combine that with many women that are struggling with obesity as well. Now, obesity we define as a percent body fat, not a number on the scale. And when we help people reduce percent body fat, restore their hormones, the urinary leakage often disappears. This is what I advocate for prior to any kind of surgical consideration. And the drugs for urine leakage, awful. They cause fatigue, dry mouth, constipation, and they're correlated with increased dementia. Great. So now you're leaking urine, but you don't care. You're demented. So really, that's it's an integration. We talk about now. There's a review on multivitamins. This came from one of the resources that I use called examine.com, which is a wonderful overview of supplements and how they apply. And they did a study looking at multivitamins, overviewing the information out there. Now, Orthodox medicine likes to say, you're taking vitamins. It's expensive urine. You're wasting your money. All right, perhaps. But perhaps it's just not properly applied. What we know about multivitamins is they oftentimes are micro doses of a broad array of things that sound good and look good on the label but don't have a lot of impact. So who should consider them? Certainly people that are pregnant, elderly, over 65, diabetics, people who've had gastric bypass, people with bowel issues, people on proton pump inhibitors. At Intellectual Medicine, we have the ability to deliver super high dose vitamin intravenously, getting to levels unachievable by oral route. Now, why is that relevant? Journal of the American College of Cardiology, 2018. High folic acid supplementation correlates with decreased heart disease. High B vitamin correlated with decreased stroke. From the psychiatric literature, 2013. High B vitamins especially, when I say high B vitamins, these are doses beyond multivitamin level. improvement, reducing anxiety, reducing hostility, reducing stress, diminishing fatigue, diminishing brain fog, overall enhancement of mood, 2013 study. How about ocular health? Age-associated macular degeneration. From 2001, a landmark study from the Archives of Ophthalmology, a reduction in macular degeneration with high-dose vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, zinc, and copper. Vitamins properly administered in the right dose to the right patient make a difference. Supplements make a difference. IV support, chelation, high-dose vitamin C. Vitamin infusions have made a difference in the lives of our patients, Shannon. Clinically, we've seen those outcomes.
We see it every week, every day.
Yeah.
You know?
Gentleman in the other day has got known coronary artery disease. He's been chelating with us regularly. Symptoms of angina disappeared. They wanted to put stents in him. He deferred and now doesn't need them. Now, the studies in this field are nascent. That means they're early. There's not a lot of money backing this type of pursuit. If anything, they do bad studies on poor dosed vitamins and declare them ineffective.
Right, so then you can push meds, right?
Drugs
Drugs.
only. You got to take drugs. Right. Well, listen, we're not against drugs. Some of my best friends take drugs, but we advocate for the integration. The problem here, as I see it, Shan, is you've got one fund of knowledge, the Orthodox Medical Fund, that dominates. We talked a moment ago about loss of freedom. Orthodox medicine tends to crush opposition. You get the naturopaths and the chiropractors, and they tend to get diminished in the eyes of Orthodox medicine, when in fact they possess credible, valuable knowledge. They also, however, in some cases, lack a full appreciation of what Orthodox medicine can do. One of the reasons that we created intellectual medicine is because this division is unnatural and unnecessary. What we really want is to bring these two worlds together because they work better when they are complementing one another, so that you can consider how to use supplements. I had a patient in just the other day, Shan, and she's heard us on the radio, looking forward to losing weight, improving energy, a bag full of supplements, which tells me a couple of things, right? They're doing research. You guys are doing your research out there. I know, because when you come to me, you've done your homework, right? And because, thanks to you, I've got 1,000 research assistants. Some of my patients send me articles on a regular basis. I appreciate and I read every one because I respect the homework that you are doing. And when we put our minds together, we can save a bucket of money and focus on supplements. That's what Dr. Souza does. That's what we do. And that's why better health exists, not in the absence of disease, but the presence of robust vitality. So we touched upon the screening, the leaking urine. We talked about the vitamins, the role of supplements. There are too many. Really, it's not something that people should be left to guide their lives towards without consultative input. It's just too hard. There are just too many of them. There are a bazillion of them out there. And you read I had a patient of mine was getting their vitamins online, their supplements online. And he said to me, Doc, I was taking so many that I called the company up and I wanted to know which could I stop taking. He said, by the time I hung up the phone, I bought 3 more. If you're buying your vitamins and you're getting your advice from a company that makes all their money selling vitamins and supplements, it's going to be biased. Yes, we do sell supplements at Intellectual Medicine, but it's not our core reason for existence. We want your health to be the issue. Anyhow, what do you want? We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to re-invite our calling guest. Okay, yeah, we'll come back and we'll do that. You know what, though? Right before, because we'll have time for this, we need to talk about the addiction epidemic and the treatment that makes the most sense. And we'll be right back with that advice. I'm Dr. Petteruti, and this is Intellectual Medicine. We'll be right back.
So, Paul, actually.
From a guy named Steve who wanted to know about sleep.
CBD oil.
Minutes from 12 to 9 p.m. will win $100
Steve.
in free slot play. Only
All right, thanks.
Casino.
Message and data rates may apply.
So Paul asked this actually a couple weeks ago, but we didn't get a chance to it.
Is illegal just about
He wants to know your opinion on dichotomous earth as a cleanse.
because a special opportunity
No,
is
that's
just
I'm not
one
saying
text
that.
away. The Racing Vision Institute is offering
Here we
absolutely
go.
free consultation and
Paul.
dramatically low prices on high quality
Have you heard of
racing.
that?
Text the keyword value to 350-350
Okay.
to get the benefit
Yeah,
of
Paul,
FDA-approved racing technology that gives the
when it
best
comes to
communication
cleanses
for a fraction
and
of what others charge.
diatomaceous earth being among them,
To see if racing
they tend to be,
when you text value
how to put this,
350, you'll also get an extra
appealing in concept. The idea that we can somehow cleanse our system of impurity through some type of like radiator flush is appealing, but we don't advocate for that approach because our bodies are constantly reabsorbing environmental substances. And rather than do a periodic cleanse, we advocate for ongoing low toxicity lifestyle. And that means living more towards an organic, health-based approach. When it comes to cleansing our body, the things that we do advocate for are purging heavy metals. There are a couple of ways to do it. The best way, in our view, is intravenous chelation. We feel like everybody should be doing chelation. The only issue is how often. In general, I recommend it once a month. If you've got the time and the budget for that, only good things come of it because you're pulling out toxic heavy metals that otherwise cannot leave your body. If you can't afford it once a month, it's just it's about $180.
180, but they're also getting a full vitamin infusion
Right.
with it.
That's right. So you get the vitamins, the chelation. Another means of getting rid of those toxicities, sweating. And if you have the ability to use a sauna, that's a beautiful thing. And here's a little known means of detoxifying. Donate blood. Some of those persistent or organic pollutants, they don't get out of you. They circulate and they continually cause you problems. Now, does that mean you're dumping them on some poor unsuspecting individual that's going to get your blood? Well, yes, but he's dying from bleeding. So in the moment, he's not worried about organic pollutants. So I like regular blood donation. It's good for society and it's good for you. I like chelation on a regular basis. And, we should get a sauna. We should put a sauna in.
Pat Ford back on the line. You're 10 seconds out. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of another.
No worry.
I couldn't go the distance today. I know my dad jokes are so good.
Intellectual medicine with Dr. Petteruti. Call him now at 438-WPRO. 1-800-321-WPRO.
Hey, gang, we are back. And in a moment, we'll be welcoming Pat Ford from Tyler, he's a libertarian. Tell me again. Yes. Okay, that's very cool. Libertarians have a pretty cool philosophy, but we'll let him speak to that. But before we bring Pat on, we have to highlight this, rather quickly. 72,000 deaths in 2017 from drug overdose. Folks, that's up 7%. Now, you want to look at a boondoggle. Shannon, help me out here. A boondoggle is all of these silver-spooned plush treatment centers, right? 30 days inpatient, massage therapy. It's never been shown to have any significant value. New England Journal of Medicine, beautiful article overviewing treatment of addiction, opioid addiction. The one thing that stood out above anything else, what was it, Shan? It was Suboxone. Suboxone therapy was shown to be superior. It's cheap. It's widely available. If you're a drug addict and you're trying to recover, this is a medical disorder. At the point at which addiction has occurred, it's a medical disorder. At the point at which you first got it started, it's a social problem. The introduction of the drug, if you never try it, you never get addicted. At some future show, we have to talk about juuling.
Oh my gosh,
That's an epidemic.
it really is.
So we'll talk about that at a future show.
Yeah.
But we have available executive Suboxone at Intellectual Medicine. This is for the discriminating person looking for recovery. in a discrete environment with the benefit of anti-aging therapies woven into it. So that's our quick highlight. But next up, Tyler, we want to introduce Pat Ford. Pat, thanks for calling Intellectual Medicine. Welcome to the show. Well, I appreciate that, Pat. Yeah. Yes. Hey, Pat, do me a favor, because in the interest of time, I just want you to narrow the focus, and let's zero in on the paw socks. What's your take there? Right. Yep. Yep. That being the paw socks. Yeah. So you would have been in favor of them just saying to the paw socks, go pound sand, either build your own stadium or go to Worcester, we don't care. Okay. And I respect, let me tell you, Pat, I do have some disagreement with that approach, but I respect it because you're upfront, you're honest. What disturbs me about what happened in Rhode Island, among other things, was the way they shuffled their feet, tried to cover their tracks politically, gave it faint support so they could look good while they're losing. Be affirmative. Say, look, we're against this. Let me ask this, though, Pat. If PPAC as an art institution requires government subsidy to exist, would you be against that as well? Okay. Yep. Now let's pivot to healthcare for a moment, Pat. In my view, we have a monopoly in healthcare, and you've got incredible government interference. Ironically, now you've got Rhode Island Hospital and Care New England aligning vertically with out-of-state corporate entities that they have the freedom to go out of state to create their corporate structure. Citizens of Rhode Island are trapped. Your insurance market, Blue Cross, is a monopolistic entity that crushes freedom of choice. How do we bust out of that? That's terrible. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So there's monopolies of economic force, and there are monopolies of thought and philosophy. And Pat, we're up against the monopoly of thought and philosophy. And I consider this to be an equally important freedom issue. When we're rendering our opinions on intellectual medicine, we not infrequently encounter headwind because of preconceived biases from orthodox sources. And whenever we talk about something that is new, evolving, or a change from the dynamic, the accepted norm, if you will, you show me, it's been said, that everybody's thinking the same, ain't nobody thinking. So listen, I share your passion for freedom, and the idea that the government has no clue about how to grow business is self-evident. Everything from 38 studios to these ridiculous doling out of money for select companies. If they knew how to grow a business, they'd be growing them. They wouldn't be in government. Right? Now, having said that, though, Pat, and here's a reason that I feel a little bit differently about the paw socks. It's because I equate that to opera for the common man. On some level, right, I can afford to buy a ticket to go to a show. Suppose I'm just an average schmo, and the government is going to sponsor a festival in downtown Providence that's free for the people, just for their entertainment. I'm kind of thinking that's okay. And I'm kind of putting the paw socks a little bit in this art and entertainment category for the common man. And I agree with you in a pure sense. The problem is, and this goes beyond our time limit here, Pat, we have other entities that are competing for some of these rare commodities. Now, yes. Yeah. How about that? Yep. Well, Pat, you know what? In the interest of time, we do have to bring this to closure. But hey, listen, I appreciate your listening, your thoughts, and your input. This is Pat Ford from the Libertarian Party. If you're not familiar with Libertarian Party, do yourself a favor and get some information. And, you and I have a lot of commonality in thought. In my view, the only way that you start to have an effect is you got to choke government. It's like kudzu. And the more money you feed it, the kudzu is a malicious vine that the more money you feed it, the worse it gets. And it never, look, power never clips its own ambition. No king ever looked out over the kingdom and said, you know what? I have too much power. I got to give some back to the people. We have to choke it out of them. And that includes these monopolistic entities that are crushing your freedom of choice in medicine. We talked about the vertical integration of hospitals. We'll continue to talk about that. We talk about the government imposing mandates, invading your body with drugs and treatments you don't necessarily want, mandated immunizations. Look, as a doctor, I believe in the benefit of certain immunizations. As a freedom-loving citizen, they should not be forced on people. I'm talking now about that HPV immunization for the kids. Should not be forced on you unless there's a compelling epidemic that's going to wipe out the nation.
We should really talk about that next week. I had someone else with almost the exact same thing that happened to Ethan.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
The neurologic side effect from the immunization?
Yep.
Its merit is subordinate. Thanks, Pat, for calling. Listen, keep listening, brother. I like your thoughts. The merit of the immunization is not the issue here, people. It's your freedom. Your freedom to choose how you want your children to be raised, whether or not you want them to get immunized from a disease that is not spread through the classroom. So, look, we'll continue our intellectual conversation. But up next, Big Blue Bug Solutions with Tony DeJesus. I am Dr. Steve Petteruti with Shannon, wishing you 120 youthful years. That was cool having Pat on. I agree with a lot of their philosophy, although they tend to be a little bit puritanical with regard to the separation. I, for one, would have thrown some cash at the Paw Sox to keep them in town, right? I believe in them being a public entity worthy of the effort. You can come here with a college league, great. Who's going to go watch them? And who's going to rebuild the Apex Center? See you next time, folks.